I have the pleasure today of talking with Gordon Shenton, who I think we should acknowledge as the founding father of EQUIS. EQUIS is now 20 years old in 2017, but let's go back to the very beginnings of EQUIS when it was founded in the mid-1990s. What happened?
EQUIS was the result of a team endeavour within the EFMD, because clearly a decision like that to launch an accreditation system within a membership organisation was really quite a major event, because it totally changed the EFMD.
If you go back to the first group that was formed, when was that?
The EFMD mandated a group called EQUIS, European Quality Link.
Indeed.
In '95, as I remember. This was a group of management education associations in different countries. The Spaniards were there, the Italians were there, the Dutch were there, the Germans, the British were there. I was sent by the Chapitre des Grandes Écoles to represent the French business schools in the discussions leading up to the creation of EQUIS. And at the end of the process became the chairman of EQUIS, which is how I became involved in the whole process from the beginning. The mandate for EQUIS was to determine, first of all, feasibility of creating a system like this. And if we were to create a European accreditation system, what would it look like?
Can I remind you of a phrase which I remember went something like, "The Americans are coming." How did that influence what we were doing?
Well, certainly one of the factors in the political decision at the time was the decision taken by AACSB that they were going to accredit institutions outside of the continental United States. In other words, they were going to go international. This would have meant that the European business schools would only have one body to look to in terms of saying what is meant by quality. And I think this was a major stimulus to the group, because AACSB was established, so therefore we had to do something different, but also it had to be something that really reflected European values at the time.
Interesting how competition works sometimes, isn't it? Producing innovation.
Yes.
And I think at that time EQUIS was a real innovation. So we move forward a few years from the mid-1990s to the actual launch, the decision to go with EQUIS in 1997, having got the approval of the board of EFMD. What happened next?
Well, the key moment, of course, was the vote that was taken during the Deans and Directors meeting in Schlossgracht. We presented the proposal and put it to the vote. It was overwhelmingly approved. So we ended up with 19 pioneer schools from different countries. We set a standard fee so that we had a group of schools going through, we had a budget, and we had a project.
It really changed the life of EFMD too. Up until that point we had been a loose European network of schools and to some extent corporate organisations as well.
Yes, I think it became much less a discussion club, a networking club, and much more a serious worldwide institution. It really changed the whole scope and dimension of the EFMD.
What were the elements of EQUIS that were absolutely at its heart, its foundation?
There were two fundamental points. The first was the commitment to internationalization. This made obvious sense for the Europeans because it was a fragmented community of small countries, with each country having its own educational system. Hence, we really needed to bring things together. So internationalization, that is working across countries, was always something that the Europeans were good at, a necessity for our economy, and it was a necessity for the business schools working to serve that economy. The second major value was the importance that we attached to corporate connections. Some of the best business schools in Europe functioned on a model that was somewhat different from the American model. AACSB was an organ that was much closer to the university sector than the EFMD is. The EFMD had a corporate membership, and hence we had a set of values that reflected the need to work both on the school side and on the business school side, the business community side.
Those two things not only were at the heart of EQUIS then, but they remain so today. They're really differentiating factors, the internationalisation element and the involvement of corporate stakeholders in everything we do.
Yes.
But can I just add one third point to your two? I think from the very beginning we were determined not only to have a quality assurance system, but to have a quality improvement system.
Yes, and this is rooted in the mission of the EFMD. EQUIS was created not just to provide a certification for business schools, but really to help develop the level of management education across Europe. Now we would say around the world.
Indeed.
And to provide a system that encouraged schools to work together, to learn from each other, so that everybody was in a positive loop of continual improvement. Which meant that the French, for instance, that were very good at managing mobility and excellent in corporate connections, could learn from the Germans, who were probably much more solid in academic terms. So there was this process of different management systems in different countries, learning from each other, and learning and taking what was best.
Indeed.
In the
Yes.
different systems.
Yes.
So it was a win-win situation.
But when you look at EQUIS 20 years on, compared to the EQUIS that you were very much involved in designing, what's new? What's changed?
If we look back to the 90s, internationalization was really about managing student mobility programs. This was the period of the Erasmus exchanges.
Indeed.
What has changed is that from this non-degree conferring mobility system, we began to move into closer collaborations and partnerships. We began to move out of Europe, USA as being the main targets for schools, to a global conception of what internationalization means, where partnerships are being set up not simply to move students around, but really to work strategically together. And this is the name of the game at the moment.
I think if you would allow me to sing the praises of EQUIS, and we ought to be able to do that when celebrating our 20th anniversary. For me, it was when Della Bradshaw, the management education editor of the Financial Times, perhaps one of the best informed management education journalists in the world, said that EQUIS had become the gold standard for accreditation. I think we'd actually arrived.
Right on, yes.